Life in Kosovo. $500 budget in Europe's youngest country with beautiful female. This doesn't feel like Europe, but it is. It's also one of the cheapest places on the continent, yet nobody talks about it. Now here's what might shock you. You can survive here on just $500 a month. Rent, food, nightlife, dirt cheap. And the best part? This country is full of young, ambitious people, a generation rebuilding from scratch. But that's not what Kosovo is famous for. People talk about the women here. Some say they're among the most beautiful in Europe, but here's the crazy part. Dating here is nothing like the rest of the West. Now, let's add another twist. You probably think Europe is modern, but Kosovo still follows traditions you'd never expect. From how people eat, to how they treat foreigners, to what happens when you try to flirt with the wrong person, this place is full of surprises. And if you think you know what life is like in Kosovo, think again. Because by the end of this, you might start questioning everything you assumed about Europe. So, how far does $500 really go in Europe's youngest country? What makes Kosovar women so famous? And what's the one thing that completely shocked me? Let me show you, because this isn't what you expect. Kosovo, a place that almost nobody talks about, a country that, for many, might as well not exist. But what if I told you that this tiny nation in the heart of the Balkans is one of the most fascinating places you could visit right now? It's cheap, it's young, and it's filled with things that will completely change the way you think. About Europe. Let's start with something shocking. Kosovo is the youngest country in Europe. It declared independence in 2008, and while some countries still refuse to recognize it, that hasn't stopped it from moving forward. This is a place still rebuilding, still defining itself, still trying to shake off the scars of war. But here's the crazy part. It doesn't feel like a struggling country. If you walk through Pristina, the capital, you'll see something you don't expect. Cafes filled with young people, streets alive with energy, and a nightlife scene that could easily compete with cities like Berlin or Belgrade. Kosovo has one of the youngest populations in Europe, with the average age being just 30 years old. That means the streets are full of ambition, optimism, and a hunger for something bigger. But let's talk about what really makes Kosovo stand out. It's insanely cheap. In a world where everything feels more expensive by the day, Kosovo is like stepping into an alternate reality. A full meal for $3. A night out for less than $10. Rent that makes Westerners think they've traveled back in time. Think about this. For a second, with just $500, you can live comfortably in Kosovo. That's rent, food, transport, and even a little fun on the weekends. In Western Europe, $500 might not even cover a week's worth of groceries. Here, it can last you an entire month. And that brings up an interesting question. How is this even possible? Why is Kosovo so cheap when the rest of Europe feels like it's bleeding people dry? The answer isn't simple, but it has a lot to do with Kosovo's economy, its past, and the way the country has been forced to rebuild itself. But before we get into that, let's talk about something else that Kosovo is known for. Its women. If you've ever come across rankings of the most beautiful women in Europe, chances are you've seen Kosovo on the list. And it's not an exaggeration. Kosovar women are stunning. But here's what nobody tells you. Dating here is not like dating in the West. The culture, the traditions, the expectations, it's an entirely different world. Some things are stricter, while others might surprise you with how modern they are. There's a certain charm to the way relationships work here. It's not just about looks, it's about values, about family, about traditions that have been passed down for generations. And if you think you understand how it all works, you don't. Not until you actually spend time here and see it for yourself. But just when you think you figured Kosovo out, something strange happens. You start noticing things that don't make sense, traditions that seem out of place, customs that feel ancient, and a level of hospitality that almost feels unreal. Let's put it this way. If you show up in a small Kosovar town, don't be surprised if a random family invites you into their home, feeds you until you can't move, and refuses to let you leave until you've had at least 3 cups of homemade rakija. Hospitality here isn't just a polite thing. It's a way of life, and that's just scratching the surface. Kosovo is filled with contradictions, surprises, and things that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about Europe. So here's what we're going to do. In this documentary, I'm going to break it all down. How far does $500 really go? What makes the women here so famous? And what's the one thing that truly shocked me the most? Because, trust me, there's something here that nobody talks about. And once you see it, you won't forget it. Let's get into it. Why Kosovo is so cheap. Kosovo is one of the cheapest places in Europe, and that fact alone makes it a goldmine for budget travelers. But why is it so cheap? If you've ever looked at the cost of living in places like France, Germany, or even nearby Italy, you'd expect most of Europe to be expensive. But Kosovo is different. You can live here on just $500 a month, and not just survive, but actually live well. So what makes Kosovo so affordable? Let's break it down. The economy, the biggest factor. Behind the low costs, Kosovo's economy is still recovering from the war in the late 1990s, and that has had a massive impact on how money flows in the country. While many European nations have seen their economies grow rapidly, Kosovo has been playing catch-up. Unemployment is high, wages are low, and foreign investment isn't as strong as in other parts of the continent. The average monthly salary in Kosovo is around $450 to $600, which is a fraction of what people earn in Western Europe. Because local wages are low, the cost of living has remained low to match. If businesses started charging Paris or London prices, nobody in Kosovo would be able to afford it. That means everything. Rent, food, transport is priced according to what the local population can afford, and for anyone coming in with money from the US, Canada, or Western Europe, that makes Kosovo ridiculously cheap in comparison. Rent is dirt cheap. If you've ever searched for apartments in major European cities, you know the pain. In London, a tiny one-bedroom apartment can cost $2,500 a month. In Paris, easily over $2,000. Even in smaller cities, rent is usually at least $800 to $200 per month. Now, guess how much you can rent a decent apartment for in Kosovo? $200 to $300. And if you're willing to live just outside Pristina, you can get a comfortable place for as little as $150. That's rent prices you'd expect in the 1990s, not in 2024. Even Airbnb stays are cheap. You can rent an entire apartment for $15 to $25 per night, which in most places would barely get you a hostel bunk bed. Food is insanely affordable. Eating in Kosovo is almost too cheap to believe. You can get a full meal at a restaurant for $3 to $5. And we're not talking about some low-quality fast food. We're talking about full plates of delicious, home-cooked Balkan food. A burek, flaky pastry stuffed with meat or cheese, costs about $1. A huge plate of grilled meat with salad and bread, maybe $4, and groceries, even cheaper. A loaf of bread is $0.50, a liter of milk is $1, and fresh vegetables from the market are ridiculously cheap. If you cook at home, you can eat for less than $100 a month without even trying. Transportation. Basically, free. Compared to the West, getting around Kosovo is one of the cheapest things you'll ever experience. Local buses, $0.50 to $1 per ride taxis. A 10-minute ride, around $2 to $3 long-distance buses. You can travel between cities for $3 to $7. Now compare that to places like London, where a single subway ride costs $5, or New York, where taxis start at $3 before you even move. And if you rent a car, it's about $20 to $30 per day. In most of Europe, you'd be lucky to get a bicycle for that price. No crazy tourist taxes. Many European countries have realized they can squeeze more money out of visitors by charging ridiculous tourist taxes. In places like Venice, you have to pay an entrance fee just to walk into the city. In Barcelona, hotels add extra charges just because you're not a local? Kosovo? None of that. Because it's still an underrated travel destination, it hasn't developed that aggressive tourist pricing. Locals don't see tourists as walking ATMs, and prices are the same whether you're a visitor or a resident. The currency. Euros. Without the high prices, Kosovo uses the euro, but the prices don't match the rest of Europe. In France or Germany, using euros means you're paying $3 to $5 for a coffee, $20 for a meal, and at least $50 for a basic hotel room. In Kosovo, those same euros stretch 5 to 10 times further. It's like getting Western Europe's stability, but Eastern Europe's affordability. No visa hassles for many travelers. One unexpected way Kosovo saves you money. It doesn't require expensive visas for many travelers. If you've ever applied for a Schengen visa, you know it can be a headache. Visa fees, paperwork, long wait times. But Kosovo, for many countries, entry is free and hassle-free. That means no extra $100, $200 in visa costs just to enter. Nightlife that doesn't drain your wallet. Going out in major European cities can destroy your budget in one night. In places like Amsterdam or Stockholm, one cocktail can cost $15 to $20, and clubs charge $30 just to get in. In Kosovo, drinks cost $2 to $4, and most clubs have free entry. That means you can actually afford to enjoy yourself without spending half your monthly salary in one night. No chains, just local prices. One of the reasons Western countries are so expensive. Big international brands set the prices. McDonald's, Starbucks, and global hotel chains price their products at international rates, even if the local economy is cheaper. Kosovo? Barely any of that. Most restaurants, cafes, and shops are locally owned, meaning they charge prices that locals can afford, not some inflated corporate rates. The culture of affordability. Finally, one of the biggest reasons Kosovo is so cheap, the entire country is used to living on a budget. Because of the past hardships, wars, and economic struggles, people here know how to stretch a euro. They don't. Waste money on unnecessary luxuries, and that keeps overall costs down. Kosovo isn't just cheap because of low wages or a struggling economy. It's cheap because the culture values affordability. The cheapest country in Europe. So is Kosovo the cheapest country in Europe? If you're looking for a place where your money goes 5 to 10 times further than in the West, the answer is yes. With $500 a month, you can live like a king. Rent is cheap, food is practically free, transport is a joke in terms of cost, and you don't get ripped off just for being a tourist. But here's the real question. How long will it stay this way? Because as more people discover how affordable Kosovo is, prices could start rising. So if you want to experience this hidden budget paradise, the time to go is now. The Women of Kosovo. Why are they so famous? Kosovo might be one of the cheapest places in Europe, but that's not the only thing people talk about when they visit. There's another reason Kosovo turns heads, and that's its women. If you've ever heard someone mention Kosovo in passing, chances are they weren't just talking about budget travel. Kosovar women have a reputation, and it's one that keeps people curious. But what exactly makes them so famous? Is it their looks, their personality, their culture? Or is it something deeper, something that can't be explained until you experience it yourself? Let's break it down. The looks. Is it just about beauty? Let's start with the obvious. Kosovar women are striking. Walk down any street in Pristina, and you'll notice it right away. Tall, elegant with sharp features, high, cheekbones and piercing eyes. Many have a mix of Albanian, Slavic, and Mediterranean ancestry, which gives them a unique and exotic beauty that's different from what you see in Western Europe. Their fashion sense is another thing that stands out, unlike in some places where casual wear means sweatpants and hoodies. Kosovar women put effort into their appearance. You'll see women dressed stylishly even for a simple coffee outing. Heels, perfectly done hair, elegant coats. It's a normal sight, but here's the thing. It's not just about physical beauty. That's only one part of the story. Confidence and attitude. The real secret. If you think beauty alone is why Kosovar women have such a reputation, you're missing the bigger picture. It's the way they carry themselves. Kosovar. Women are confident, but not in a loud or arrogant way. It's the type of confidence that comes from knowing who they are and what they bring to the table. They're strong, independent, and proud of their culture. This confidence comes from history. Kosovo has had a tough past, wars, struggles, and rebuilding from scratch. Women here have played a massive role in shaping society, standing strong through difficult times. That strength is reflected in their personality. They don't follow trends, they set them. They don't try too hard, they just are. Family-oriented, yet modern. One of the most fascinating things about Kosovar women is how they balance traditional values with modern independence. On one hand, family is everything. It's common for women to be very close to their families, and in many cases they still live with their parents well into their 20s or even 30s. In Western cultures, this might seem strange, but in Kosovo, it's just a part of life. At the same time, they are educated, ambitious, and independent. More women are now going to university, working in professional fields, and building careers. You'll find women running businesses, working in government, and leading social movements. They're not just waiting around for a husband, they're making things happen. The coffee culture, where social life happens if you really want. To understand Kosovar women, you have to look at the coffee culture. In Kosovo, coffee isn't just a drink, it's a lifestyle. Women here spend hours at cafes, socializing, networking, and catching up with friends. And when they go out, they look like they're walking into a fashion show. It's not about showing off, it's about the experience. Cafes in Kosovo are places where people see and are seen. It's a social ritual, and women are at the center of it. If you sit in a cafe long enough, you'll start to notice a pattern. Women dressed well, sitting in groups, engaged in lively conversations. This is also where you see their charm and social skills in action. They're not shy, and they know how to hold a conversation. Whether it's politics, fashion, business, or travel, Kosovar women can talk about it all. The influence of Albanian culture. Kosovar women are ethnically Albanian, and that plays a big role in their identity. Albanian culture is rich, passionate, and deeply rooted in tradition. One of the biggest influences, the concept of besa. Besa is an Albanian cultural code of honor, loyalty, and hospitality. It means that when an Albanian gives you their word, they keep it. It's about respect, integrity, and looking out for one another. This mindset is deeply ingrained in Kosovar women. They're loyal to their families, their friends, and their partners. If they care about you, they'll go out of their way to help you. But at the same time, they expect the same in return. If you break their trust, it's over. They won't tolerate disrespect, and they have high standards when it comes to relationships. Dating in Kosovo, a unique experience. If you're thinking, are Kosovar women open to dating foreigners? The answer is complicated. On one hand, Kosovar women are friendly and welcoming. They love meeting new people, And if you show genuine interest in their culture, they'll respect you for it. But dating is not casual here. In many Western countries, dating is easygoing and fast-moving. But in Kosovo? It's different. Relationships take time to build. Don't expect to meet someone and go on a date the next day. Family approval matters. Many women won't take a relationship seriously unless they see long-term potential. Respect is everything. If you come across as someone who's just looking for fun, you won't get far. Kosovar. Women aren't looking for someone to impress them with money or flashy gestures. They value character, loyalty, and how you treat others. If you're respectful, patient, and genuinely interested in them as a person, you'll earn their respect. The role of education and intelligence Kosovar. Women are not just about beauty and tradition. They are highly educated and well-informed. In fact, Kosovo has seen a huge rise in female university graduates over the past decade. More women are now studying abroad, learning new languages, and working in high-level positions. Many speak multiple languages: Albanian, English, German, and sometimes Italian. This makes them even more fascinating. They have global perspectives, yet they still hold on to their cultural roots. Feminism versus traditional roles. Kosovo is in a unique position. It's a country caught between modern feminism and deep-rooted traditions. On one side, you have young women pursuing careers, fighting for gender equality, and breaking old stereotypes. On the other side, you have a strong cultural expectation of marriage, family, and traditional gender roles. This creates an interesting dynamic. Some women fully embrace modern independence, while others still follow traditional paths. There's no one-size-fits-all rule. Why are Kosovar women so famous? So, what's the real reason Kosovar women have such a reputation? It's not just about looks. It's about presence, confidence, the way they carry themselves. They are a mix of traditional values and modern independence. They are strong yet feminine, confident yet humble, fashionable yet deep thinkers. They have high standards, strong, loyalty, and a unique charm that makes them stand out. Kosovo might be Europe's youngest country, but its women have an energy that feels timeless. And once you've experienced it, you'll understand why people keep talking about them. Strange things you'll find in Kosovo. Kosovo might be Europe's youngest country, but it's packed with things that will leave you scratching your head. Some of them are hilarious, some are mind-blowing, and some will make you question everything you thought you knew about Europe. From abandoned Yugoslav monuments to bizarre coffee culture rituals, this place is full of unexpected surprises. Let's get into the strangest things you'll find in Kosovo, a country that's not recognized. Everywhere, let's start with something that messes with people's heads. Kosovo is a country, but also kind of not. Technically, Kosovo declared independence from Serbia in 2008. Over 100 countries recognize it, including the United States and most of Western Europe. But here's where it gets weird. Serbia, Russia, China, and a bunch of other countries don't recognize it at all. What does this mean in real life? Well, try using your Kosovo passport in places that don't recognize the country. It's like trying to use Monopoly money in a real store. Some people just won't accept it. Even in international sports competitions, Kosovo sometimes has issues participating because some organizations still list it under Serbia. The love for American presidents. If you think Kosovo's capital, Pristina, is like any other European city, think again. Where else in Europe will you find a massive statue of Bill Clinton? Kosovo has a bizarre and borderline obsessive love for American presidents, especially the ones who supported their independence. Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and even Joe Biden are treated like heroes here. There's a street called Bill Clinton Boulevard, a clothing store called Hillary, yes, after Hillary Clinton, and people name their kids after American politicians. Why? Because during the Kosovo War in the late 1990s, the U.S. played a major role in helping Kosovo break away from Serbia. And when someone helps you get your freedom, you don't forget. The most intense coffee culture in Europe, most countries have coffee culture, but in Kosovo, it's an obsession. People drink coffee like their lives depend on it. And it's not just about caffeine, it's about social life. Kosovars spend hours sitting at cafes, even if they only order one tiny espresso. And if you're thinking, oh, it's probably just young people hanging out, you'd be wrong. Everyone does this. Teenagers, businessmen, grandmas, even people who should be at work. The coffee culture in Kosovo is so extreme that people sometimes joke, nobody works here, they just drink coffee all day. And honestly, it feels like that might be true. The ghost town of Ulpiana. If you ever drive outside Pristina, you might come across one of the weirdest things in Kosovo, a city that doesn't exist. Ulpiana was an ancient Roman city that once stood in what is now Kosovo. It was a major center of civilization nearly 2,000 years ago. But today, it's mostly ruins, and nobody really knows what happened to it. The craziest part? Archaeologists keep finding weird artifacts there, including Roman statues and ancient graves. It's like a lost civilization buried under modern Kosovo. Wedding convoys that look like protests. If you're in Kosovo and suddenly see a long line of cars honking like crazy, don't panic. It's not a political protest. It's a wedding. Weddings in Kosovo are huge events, and one of the traditions is to drive around the city in a long convoy of cars, honking non-stop. It's loud, it's chaotic, and if you don't know what's happening, you might think there's some kind of riot going on. Oh, and let's not forget the fireworks. Kosovars love fireworks. They set them off for weddings, birthdays, and even random celebrations. Sometimes it feels like every night is New Year's Eve. The abandoned Yugoslav monuments scattered across Kosovo, you'll find massive, futuristic-looking monuments that look like something out of a sci-fi movie. They're called spomenics, and they were built during the Yugoslav era. What's weird about them? They serve no real purpose today. They were originally built to symbolize unity between the different regions of Yugoslavia, but after the country broke apart, these structures were just left behind. Some of them look creepy, especially at night. They're giant, empty, and forgotten, like alien spaceships that landed and never left. The love for turbo folk, eh? Music, every country has its own music trends, but Kosovo has a guilty pleasure that surprises a lot of visitors. Turbo folk is a mix of pop, electronic beats, and traditional Balkan music. It's loud, dramatic, and honestly, kind of addictive. Some people hate it, some people love it. But one thing is certain, you will hear it everywhere. It plays in taxis, cafes, nightclubs, and even grocery stores. And the lyrics, let's just say they're not exactly deep. Most songs are about love, heartbreak, and partying. Basically, Balkan country music on steroids. The infamous bear sanctuary, yes, you read that right. Kosovo has a bear sanctuary. Before 2013, many people in Kosovo kept bears as pets. Yes, actual bears. They would chain them up outside restaurants to attract customers. You'd be eating dinner, and there'd be a bear in the corner, just chilling. Obviously, this was a terrible idea, so an organization stepped in and created a sanctuary where rescued bears now live. Today, the bear sanctuary Pristina is one of the weirdest tourist attractions in Kosovo. You can visit and see the bears that were once restaurant mascots. The dialect that confuses. Even Albanians, Kosovo's official language is Albanian, but if you speak standard Albanian from Tirana, the capital of Albania, you might still struggle to understand Kosovars. Kosovar Albanian is filled with Slavic, Turkish, and even German words. making it a weird mix that confuses even native Albanian speakers. It's like someone threw different languages into a blender and created a new dialect. For example, in Albania, they say faleminderit for thank you. In Kosovo, they just say falemneres. Even Albanians joke that Kosovo has its own secret language, the national drink, rakia. If someone in Kosovo offers you rakia, prepare yourself. This drink is not for the weak. Rakia is a strong fruit brandy that Kosovars drink at every occasion: weddings, funerals, celebrations, and even breakfast. It's homemade, super strong, and burns like fire. If you're not used to it, one shot might knock you out. But here's the fun part. It's considered rude to refuse rakia. If a Kosovar offers you a drink, you better take it, even if it feels like drinking gasoline. Kosovo's strange side is what makes it special. Kosovo might be young, but it's got a personality that's bigger and weirder than most places. From its love for American presidents to its obsession with coffee, from abandoned Yugoslav monuments to wedding convoys that sound like riots, this place is full of surprises. It's one of those countries where you'll constantly find yourself thinking, wait, is this real life? But that's what makes Kosovo special. It's not just another European country. It's a mix of history, quirks, and unexpected moments that make every visit unforgettable. The hospitality. Why Kosovars are some of the friendliest people. If you've ever traveled to different parts of Europe, you've probably noticed that some places are warmer than others. In some countries, people keep to themselves, and it takes time to break through their social walls. But Kosovo? This place will make you feel like family from the moment you arrive. Kosovars don't just welcome visitors. They treat them like honored guests. Whether you're in a cafe, on the street, or even lost in the middle of nowhere, someone will stop, smile, and ask if you need help. And they don't just point you in the right direction. They might even walk with you, invite you for coffee, and if you're really lucky, offer you a home-cooked meal. So what makes Kosovo's hospitality different from anywhere else? Let's break it down. Guest is king, a cultural mindset. In many places, hospitality is a nice gesture. In Kosovo, it's an unspoken rule. There's an old Albanian saying that roughly translates to, "A house belongs to God and the guest," meaning, if you step inside a Kosovar home, you're treated like royalty. The host will give you the best seat, bring out the best food, and insist you don't leave until you've had at least 3 rounds of coffee. It doesn't matter if you're a close friend or a total stranger. Once you're inside, you're family. And refusing hospitality, that's not an option. If a Kosovar offers you something, you better take it, because they won't stop insisting. Until you do, they will literally walk you to your destination. Getting lost in a foreign country can be stressful, but in Kosovo, it's almost a blessing in disguise. If you stop someone and ask for directions, don't expect a quick left, right, straight ahead. Kosovars take hospitality to the next level. They will physically walk you there. It doesn't matter if it's a 5-minute walk or half an hour away, they'll drop whatever they're doing just to make sure you arrive safely. And the whole time, they'll be chatting with you, making sure you feel welcome. The come inside for coffee phenomenon. In most places, inviting a stranger into your home is rare. In Kosovo, it's a daily occurrence. Walk through any neighborhood, and if you so much as smile at someone, there's a good chance they'll invite you inside for coffee. It doesn't matter if you just met or if you're obviously a tourist. If you're in Kosovo, you're family. And when Kosovars say, "come inside for coffee," it doesn't actually mean just coffee. It means snacks, homemade rakia, a strong local brandy, and possibly even a full meal. The only problem? Saying no is nearly impossible. You can't pay for anything. One of the strangest and most wonderful things about Kosovo, you can try to pay for something, but people won't let you. If you go out for coffee with a local, don't even think about reaching for your wallet. They will fight you for the bill. If you insist on paying, they'll see it as almost insulting. It's the same with food, drinks, and even taxis. Kosovars take pride in treating their guests, and they genuinely don't expect anything in return. They will invite you to a wedding, even if they just met you. Kosovar weddings are massive, hundreds of guests, hours of dancing, and enough food to feed an army. But the best part? They love inviting outsiders. If you happen to be in Kosovo during wedding season and you make friends with a local, don't be surprised if they invite you to a wedding, sometimes on the same day you met them. And once you're there, you'll be treated like part of the family with a seat at the table, endless plates of food, and enough rakia to keep you dancing all night. They treat foreigners like celebrities. Kosovo doesn't get as many tourists as other European countries, which means when people visit, locals get excited. If you're obviously not from Kosovo, don't be surprised if people stare at you, in a friendly way. They ask where you're from and why you're visiting. They insist you take photos with them, get invited to random gatherings for locals. A foreign guest is someone special. They're not used to seeing tons of tourists, so when one does show up, they make sure you have the best experience possible. They'll feed you until you can't move. If there's one thing you need to know about Kosovo, it's that you will never go hungry here. Kosovars love feeding people. If you visit a local home, prepare for a feast. Even if you say you're not hungry, they'll keep piling food onto your plate until you give up and eat. And don't even think about leaving early. They'll keep bringing out new dishes until you're physically unable to move. They'll help you. Even if they don't speak your language, one of the most amazing things about Kosovo, even if someone doesn't speak your language, they'll still do everything in their power to help you. Kosovars speak Albanian, but many also know English, German, or Serbian. However, even if they don't know a word of your language, they'll find a way to communicate. They'll use hand gestures, call a friend who speaks English, or even walk around with you until they find someone who can translate. They won't let you feel lost or confused, no matter what. They remember you, even years later. In big cities, people come and go, and no one remembers a random visitor. But in Kosovo, if you visit a small town, people will remember you, sometimes for years. If you make friends with a shop owner, a taxi driver, or even just a person you met at a cafe, there's a good chance they'll remember your name, your story, and even what you ordered the last time you were there. And if you return years later, they'll welcome you back like an old friend. They'll go out of their way to make you feel safe. Kosovo might have a complicated past, but today it's one of the safest places you can visit. If you ever feel lost, confused, or even slightly uncomfortable, someone will step in to help. Whether it's a taxi driver making sure you get home safely, a local walking you to your destination, or a restaurant owner making sure you get the best meal, they take care of visitors like family. Kosovo's hospitality is next level. In many places, hospitality is just about being polite. In Kosovo, it's a way of life. From the moment you arrive, you'll feel like you belong. People will welcome you, feed you, help you, and treat you like family, even if you just met. And that's what makes Kosovo so special. It's not just a place to visit. It's a place where you'll make real connections, experience genuine kindness, and leave with memories, and probably a full stomach, that you'll never forget. The one thing that shocked me the most. Kosovo is full of surprises. From the shockingly low prices to the warm hospitality, there's a lot that stands out. But there was one thing, one moment, one experience that truly left me speechless. I wasn't prepared for it, and I still think about it to this day. Let me explain what happened. The expectation versus reality. Shock before visiting Kosovo, I had the same assumptions as most outsiders. I had heard about its history, seen headlines about the war in the 90s, and expected to find a country still struggling to rebuild. I thought it would be like other post-war regions, quiet, a bit gloomy, and still carrying the weight of its past. But what I found, it was the complete opposite. Instead of a place trapped in its history, Kosovo felt alive. It was young, energetic, and full of people who had an unbreakable love for life. The streets were buzzing with laughter, music, and groups of friends gathering at cafes. Instead of war-torn buildings, I saw stylish restaurants, modern shopping centers, and an insane nightlife scene that could rival any major European city. That was shock number one. But the real shock, that came later. A stranger's unexpected act of kindness. I had been in Kosovo for a few days, getting used to the rhythm of life here. One afternoon, I found myself in a small town outside Pristina, walking around, taking photos, and soaking in the atmosphere. I was hungry, so I stopped by a tiny local restaurant, one of those family-owned spots where there's no menu, just whatever they feel like cooking that day. I sat down, and the owner, a middle-aged man, with a big smile, came over and welcomed me like an old friend. He didn't speak much English, but he made sure I was comfortable, pointing at different dishes and giving me a thumbs up. The food arrived, and it was incredible. Grilled meat, fresh bread, homemade cheese, everything tasted like it came straight from a grandmother's kitchen. I ate, relaxed, and enjoyed the moment. When I was done, I reached for my wallet. And that's when it happened. No money, you are our guest. I tried to pay, but the owner just shook his head and waved his hand. No, you are our guest. I laughed, thinking he was just being polite. I insisted, trying to hand him the money. He refused again. At this point, I was confused. I had eaten a full meal, and I wasn't expecting anything for free. I tried once more, but this time, he put his hand on his heart, looked me straight in the eye, and said, "In Kosovo, guest is family." That moment hit me. I had traveled to many countries, met kind people, and experienced hospitality before, but never like this. This was different. There was no hidden motive, no expectation of a favor in return. It was just pure, genuine kindness. Walked out of that restaurant feeling something I hadn't felt anywhere else, a deep, personal connection to this place. The concept of besa, a promise. Stronger than words. Later I learned that this level of hospitality isn't random. It's kulturao. There's a word in Albanian called besa. It means honor, trust, and an unbreakable promise. Besa is why Kosovars go out of their way to help strangers. It's why someone will invite you into their home even if they don't know your name. It's why I couldn't pay for my meal, because in their eyes, a guest is sacred. I realized then that Kosovo isn't just friendly. It operates on a whole different level of generosity. The taxi driver, who refused payment. If that restaurant experience wasn't enough, another moment proved just how deep this culture of kindness goes. A few days later, I was in Pristina and needed a taxi to get back to my hotel. I got in, told the driver where I was going, and we started talking. He was curious about why I was visiting Kosovo, and as we chatted, he told me about his life, his family, and his love for his country. When we arrived, I reached for my wallet again. And guess what? Same thing. He refused to take my money. I laughed and told him, "Come on, this is your job." But he just smiled and said, "You are a guest. This is Kosovo." At this point, I was starting to think, is anyone in this country going to let me pay for anything? The wedding invitation from a complete stranger. Now, if you think the hospitality ends with free meals and taxi rides, think again. The biggest shock came when I got invited to a wedding by someone I had just met. I was in a small village, talking to some locals when one of them asked me, "Have you ever been to a Kosovar wedding?" I said no, and within seconds, he was calling his cousin, telling him to add me to the guest list. I barely knew these people, and suddenly, I was an official wedding guest. That night, I found myself in a huge wedding hall, surrounded by hundreds. of dancing, singing Kosovars. I was given a seat, a plate full of food, and endless rakia, their traditional brandy. They didn't just invite me, they treated me like family. Why? This shocked me. More than anything else, I've been to many countries where people are friendly, where they welcome tourists, where they show kindness. But Kosovo takes it to another level. This isn't just about hospitality. It's a way of life. It's not just about treating tourists well. It's about treating everyone with warmth, respect, and generosity. And what's crazy, this is a country that has been through so much. They've experienced war, political struggles, economic hardship, but instead of letting their past make them bitter, they've become some of the most welcoming people in the world. The lesson I took from Kosovo after spending time in Kosovo, I realized something. This place teaches you what real hospitality is. It's not about fancy hotels or luxury service. It's about human connection. It's about a stranger making sure you get home safe. It's about a restaurant owner refusing your money because he sees you as family. It's about a random guy inviting you to the biggest celebration of his life, just because he wants you to feel included. That's what shocked me the most. Not just the generosity, but the depth of it. The fact that in Kosovo, kindness isn't an exception, it's the rule. I came to Kosovo expecting a budget-friendly trip. What I got was so much more. I left with stories, friendships, and a new understanding of what true hospitality looks like. So, if you ever visit Kosovo, be prepared. This country will surprise you in ways you never expected. And don't even try to pay for your coffee, because you probably won't be allowed to. Kosovo wasn't just another travel destination. It was an experience that rewired the way I see the world. I came here expecting a cheap European trip, but I left with something far more valuable, a deep appreciation for a country that refuses to be defined by its past. This place shattered every expectation I had. Instead of ruins, I found a young, thriving nation full of life. Instead of cold indifference, I was met with some of the warmest, most generous people I've ever encountered. Instead of just saving money, I gained experiences I wouldn't trade for anything. The truth is, Kosovo is Europe's best-kept secret. It's got the affordability of Southeast Asia, the hospitality of the Middle East, and a nightlife scene that could give Western Europe a run for its money. And yet, hardly anyone talks about it. But let's be real, this video alone won't do Kosovo justice. You could watch 100 travel documentaries, read every guidebook, and study all the history, but nothing will prepare you for what it actually feels like to be here. So here's the real question. Would you come to Kosovo? Would you step into a country that most people still don't know much about? Would you experience firsthand what it's like to be treated like family by total strangers? Would you sit in a cafe, pay $1 for a coffee, and wonder why the rest of the world hasn't caught on to this hidden paradise? Or better yet, would you let yourself be shocked the same way I was? Here's the thing. Kosovo doesn't need marketing. It doesn't rely on flashy tourist ads or gimmicks to get visitors. It's real. It's raw. And the only way to truly understand it is to see it for yourself. So, if you're tired of the same overpriced tourist traps, if you want a travel experience, that actually means something. Kosovo is waiting, and if you made it this far in the video, I have a feeling you're just as curious as I was. So, let me know in the comments. Would you visit Kosovo? Or, if you've already been, what was the one thing that shocked you the most? Oh, and one last thing. If you found this video even remotely interesting, don't keep it to yourself. Hit the share button, send it to a friend, and see if they'd take the challenge of visiting Europe's most underrated country. Because who knows? This might just be the start of their next great adventure.